Hi, this is Troxel. In part 4 of this series of tutorials, we're going to now change from looking at markers to creating regions. It's a little more complicated than it sounds in that we have to now keep track of where the first marker would have been, and then we have to look at the first time a marker would not have been placed and get the difference between those two to create the region. Fortunately, it will give us a whole lot fewer regions than we had markers. We also have the issue of when we finish going through the entire event, if the last one was not part of a region, then we're okay. But if the last one should have been part of a region, then we have to go ahead and figure that out and make sure that the last region also gets created. So let's see how we can modify the code to do this. Once again, this is our base script. Last time we changed from using this one to using the markers. Now we have copied that and made some modifications to it, so we're going to get rid of this one and go down to the check images regions. In fact, we could go ahead and just get rid of these two lines as we will no longer be using them in the future. So here's our check images regions routine. All of this part is the same as in the previous tutorial. But now we've added a new variable called first, and we've also created a new variable called previous was bad. And then I've got me a region start, which I'm going to set to the start of the event. Then as we go through each of the frames, we're going to get the file right, get the time code position of that, create the snapshot and load the image and get the percent difference. All of that is exactly the same. Now I've created me a string here to get the difference and the current frame so that we can add that to our log. Then we have a new section here. If our percent different is less than threshold, that's what we were looking at before, then we've got to look at it a couple of different ways. If the previous was not bad, if not previous was bad, then our region start is going to be the current position minus 1 frame. That is because our current position is one ahead of what we're actually wanting to look at. And then we set first equal to false. And then I'm going to go ahead and add a line that says the region start was set to this position and first is equal to false. Then we're going to set previous was bad equal to true, because that is now true because this one was a bad one. And so we will say previous was bad was now set to true on this frame and at this position. This is where we have to check to see if we're at the end of the event. If the current frame equals the event length dot frame count minus 1, because that's the last one we look at was frame count minus 1, then we will create a region. We will add that region, go ahead and set previous was bad to false, and then say region added. Now, if this was, right here we said, if percent difference was less than threshold, if it was true it does this, else it's going to do this if it's false. So if this is not the first one, and previous was bad, or the current frame equals the end length minus 1, then we're going to get the end region and set it to current position minus the 1 frame. If the current frame is the last frame, then I'm going to add 2 more frames to it. So basically, if it's the last frame, then I want to add plus 1. But since I did minus 1 up here, now I have to do plus 2 to get plus 1. So then we're going to create the region, add the region to the project. We'll go ahead and set the previous was bad to false, and add region added to our output string. On this line, we're just adding a carriage return to our output string and adding that to our result. And then we get rid of image 1, delete it, move the file right over to the file left, image 2 over to image 1 like we did before. Then the same thing here. Once we're totally done, we will get rid of image 2, delete the file right, and add the time to the result, and then copy that to the clipboard. So let's test it out and see how this works. So now we have our smaller one selected here. When we run the script, it'll start going through the script. And it is finished. So now when we zoom in and look here, we will notice we only have 3 regions instead of the 16 or so markers we had previously. So from here to here, there was no change. So this is a duplicated frame. From here to here, there was no change. So this is a duplicated frame. And then from here on out, there was no change. So all of these are duplicated frames. Once again, I also ran it on this big one here, and it took a little bit of time, so I'm going to show you an image of what it looks like with the markers selected in this one, and we can see there are a whole lot fewer regions selected. In the next tutorial, we'll continue on to see if we can get this to actually function the way we want it to, and get it to actually remove the duplicated frames so that we don't have to worry about seeing them in the end result. Stay tuned next week for the newer version. Go ahead and subscribe so that you get notifications, and make some suggestions on what you'd like to see in the future. See you in the next tutorial. Please sign up at www.JETDV.com and subscribe on YouTube to get further notifications on when new videos are presented.